Kathy Davis from Davis Travellini LLC today with our weekly updates. And Kathy's smiling again. We love to see her smile, even with the snow and our beautiful weather we got today. She's still smiling. So welcome, everybody. Hi, Kathy. How are you today?
Good. How are y'all? So first, I want to give you kind of a personal update, and I'm sharing this for reasons. The first part of it is my husband, Mike, who some of you may know, who has emphysema and has been very susceptible, to COVID. He's a veteran, and the VA is giving him his first shot of the Pfizer vaccine this afternoon. And
Good.
I feel like I've told this to a couple of people, and people get so happy when they hear that, because it's kind of like, oh my goodness, it's now getting, the vaccines are getting out more and everything. So if you are a veteran and you receive healthcare through the VA, you might want to inquire about whether you can get that vaccine. I will also tell you that both the city and the county have online registration for the vaccine. And I would really encourage you to get online and get your registration in. And I will tell you that the reason is not because I think that means you'll get the vaccine tomorrow. It's because I think that they're gathering data. And I think the more data they have about being able to contact people and who's in what group and that kind of thing, the faster this thing is going to roll out. And I ultimately think that a lot of the problems that we're having with the courts and that kind of thing are not going to be solved until the virus is way, way under control. We're not going to be able to go back to court in person in St. Louis County or get the sheriff to do evictions or anything like that until the virus is maybe not eradicated, but until it's beaten back somewhat. And I think it's really going to help the government of the city and the county figure out how many doses they need and that kind of thing. I think I've told you before that I'm in the Johnson & Johnson trial, and they hope to roll that vaccine out soon. And in fact, I'm hoping to find out in a couple of weeks if I got the placebo or the real thing. And I think they're going to give me the real thing if I didn't already get it when they unblind me. So that should happen soon. And it would be great if that vaccine can get approval, because it's one shot. It doesn't require super freezing. And I'm encouraging you to get online and register for the vaccine so that they can build their database and they can roll this out faster, because it's been kind of a disaster so far, in my opinion, and going way too slow. And the second thing I want to share with you is you all know Chris Bosler in my office, and I think a lot of you know that he's married to my daughter, Bonnie. Well, 1 week from today, they are scheduled to have a baby. This will be their second baby. This is going to be Max's little sister, for those of you who know about Max. And Bonnie's having a scheduled C-section. So we expect that it will happen as agreed next Friday. But I expect to be here for our meeting next Friday. I will be watching Max, but he's really good, and he'll come to work with me, and I'll hop on with you and hopefully give you good news. And it will mean that Chris, somehow he got the idea that we have paternity leave here. I don't know. I told him he could have a couple hours, and since the baby's coming on a Friday, take the weekend. But he's planning to be out for several days after that. So any of you who need Chris for anything after next week, don't hesitate to call me and see if I can help you with it. It's a great, blessed event, but it's also kind of tough right now because everything just takes so much longer to do, all the Zoom hearings and everything. So I know I'm going to be working really hard while Chris is out to try to keep up with all that work. So let's move on to the bad news. The big bad news, I think that some of you may have already sort of digested, is that it looks like the Biden plan, Biden is proposing an eviction moratorium until September. I have not been able to find out any details about that. We're hoping that goes hand in hand with assistance to landlords, rental assistance. We're hoping that they take away a lot of the red tape and roadblocks to applying for that. We're hoping that some of these agencies that have been managing these funds so far get their act together and get better at sending that assistance out. You know that I will keep you advised of any information that I know as I get it. about how that's going to work and how it's going to roll out. You know that we have already been working here with clients who wanted help to do the mediations in the city and complete aid applications in the county and that kind of thing. So we're still on that, and we're still here to help you on that. Obviously, contemplating waiting until September to have the eviction moratorium lifted just kind of made my stomach lurch. However, if it continues as it is now, where that eviction moratorium is only strictly for rent, and they have to do a declaration and they have to affirm or testify to the court that they have applied for assistance and that they're paying what they can and that kind of thing, that hasn't been great so far, but we haven't had that many declarations get filed, and we've beaten a few of them in court. The big problem for us, I think, continues to be the local county restrictions, particularly in St. Louis County, where they're not allowing any evictions at all, and in the city where they've restricted them. But in the city, they're following the CDC stay, where we can get out people who are problems and, have a judgment for things other than rent. So we are looking at the cases that we get now to see if we have grounds to terminate, or if the lease is up, or that kind of thing, that we do that, and that we file unlawful detainers, because our feeling is that those might not be stayed for as long as the rent ones are. And we have been having some success with our rent and possessions, even in the county where we can't evict at all, because a lot of the tenants are genuinely wanting to work out payment plans and that kind of thing. So a lot of them come to virtual court, go into a breakout room with me or Christine or Chris, and we work out payments and everything. I mean, we're giving deals that we would not really have given in the past unless the client approved it. We're giving giving them deals. They pay the current rent going forward plus so much a month towards the back rent. And some of those deals are working out very well, some are not. I was on our monthly call with the presiding judge of the county and the tenant lawyers and a couple other judges again this week. It's very frustrating. It's very frustrating. They're still in phase 0. The judge thought that they might go to phase 1 by the beginning of February. And his position is they have to be at phase 2 before they're going to risk the sheriff's lives and send them out to do evictions. They're adamant that the sheriffs can serve process without risk, but they can't evict without risk. We think that is completely wrong, but we already took our writ up and lost on that. So we're working on the federal court lawsuit to ask for compensation for our landlords that have been basically denied the use of their property because they can't get the property back. And we expect to have that filed pretty soon. We have funds left over that everybody helped us with for the writ that we're using for that. So we're going to try that. We have, I think we might have a better chance of success with that than we did with the writ. I got a real good lawyer named John Hine who's been working on it, and I expect to talk with him today or over the weekend to see how close we are to filing. So Chris is in court in St. Charles this morning. St. Charles is pretty much business as usual for landlords. They're having landlord court in person. The sheriff will go out, et cetera, et cetera. Jefferson County seems to be the wild pendulum swinging back and forth. They either are having court or they're having nothing, and they are not willing there to do very much remotely. So they're not doing really Zoom or WebEx. They either get their virus down low enough that you can come to court or they don't. Chris was in court there, I think, earlier this week. So I think right now they're in court, but it's hard to know how that will work out either way. In the city, we have a new presiding judge. He decided to leave everything in place the way it was through the end of January, but we are actively talking to him. He's asked for feedback from me, and we're hoping to get him to loosen the strings a little bit. If we could get him to open it up to all evictions that don't qualify under the CDC type order, it would be great. And we're, like I said before, we're also watching to see how the funds are going to be administered and that kind of thing. And with respect to the Biden proposal, that's by no means law yet. Hard to know if that will pass. But we'll see as we go along. We'll see what the terms of it are. Hopefully it will come with big chunks of money, for the landlords. We have lobbied for, I shouldn't say lobbied because I'm not a registered lobbyist, but we have requested that once the landlord and the tenant, once there's a judgment in favor of the landlord and against the tenant, and it states the rent amount and the property address and everything like that, that should be prima facie proof that there's a landlord-tenant relationship, that this rent is due, et cetera, and that therefore all this additional paperwork that these agencies keep coming up with that they want to require should not be necessary. And I've talked to Yusuf Scoggins, who's in charge of all this stuff in St. Louis County, about this. And he's very good at nodding and smiling at everything I ask, but I think he kind of got it, because they have had a lot of trouble with the agencies giving out the money. They may even have had to give some money back. I don't know, but that's been a big problem. There's a couple agencies in particular that kind of just ghosted everybody. I don't know if they crashed under the weight of all the paperwork or what happened, but we're hoping to get the process loosened up a little bit. So I think that's all the new things that I have for today. So would anybody like to have any questions? Okay, so while you're thinking about questions, I will tell you something a little funny. Max, my 7-year-old grandson, and I go swimming on Thursday nights. So we went swimming last night, and we were in the car and driving there, and he's going to come and stay with me next week while Bonnie goes in the hospital. So we were talking about that, and I told him, I said, so Pop, my husband, I said, so Pop is getting his vaccine tomorrow. So we won't have to worry as much about, keeping him safe. And Max said, oh, that's very good. That's very happy. And he said, well, why is he getting the vaccine? And I said, well, because he's a veteran. Do you know what a veteran is? And he says, someone who doesn't eat meat. So if you're a vegetarian, line on up for the vaccine. Max thinks you can get it.
That's funny.
So,
Too funny.
Yeah. At this point, we'll laugh at anything.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, that's a great update, Kathy. Does anybody have any questions? I mean, I pretty much answered what I.
Hey, John. Oh. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Kathy, would it help to provide the judge with? I think I'd sent you a couple of weeks ago that article that kind of shows. Well, it's like a graphic that shows what percentage of the rent actually goes to profit for landlords, and it was kind of a credible source. Would it help to provide the judge with a document like that to just kind of sink them in our reality? It's like, it's not all this money goes into people's pockets. Is that helpful, or?
Honestly, I would say in the county that Judge Burton gets that. I think that they've decided that they don't want to do evictions right now because of COVID. And their justification for that is they don't want to put the sheriffs at risk until COVID dies down in the community. So the economic arguments that we've been making have not been effective. Where those arguments might be effective would be to send them to your US senators and congressmen. Now, I can tell you that along with many lawyers, we all think that Josh Hawley is completely crazy. So we are really not contacting him. But Roy Blunt is a reasonable guy. He's more conservative than I am, but I think he wants to do right by his constituents. So I would send things like that, or send pleas to his office, and also to your congressperson, which probably is Cori Bush or Ann Wagner. And I would think Ann Wagner is probably going to be more sympathetic here. I don't think Cori's a bad person, but she's pretty out there on the left pretty far. But I think that even the really liberal people, even the tenant advocates, they understand that the landlords are suffering too. They just don't think that, I don't want to say they don't care, because I don't think that's right, but they just don't think that's enough justification to evict people.
Because, to me, the powerful part was it kind of just documents that 11 cents out of every dollar is what actually may flow through to the landlord, because it breaks down all the expenses. And again, it's not emotional. It's not an emotional discussion. It's a fact-based piece of data. John, do you have that? So we could put on the website that people could grab and use when they send?
I don't know what you're talking about. If you send it to me, I'll send it on.
Well, I'll do that. Yeah, it was something I think I can't remember where I ran across it. It was on a webinar somewhere and they shared it, and it was pretty powerful, piece of documentation that looks as, like we're not getting rich off this, guys. Here are all the expenses, that property taxes, this, that, and the other thing, on national basis, on average, a landlord takes home 11 cents out of every dollar that they earn in rent on a property. So I'll send that in, email that to you, and we can stick it on the website, and maybe everyone can pull from it as they communicate.
Lisa Clancy was on a call that I was on a few weeks ago, the St. Louis County Councilwoman. And I said, well, maybe the county could forgive the real estate taxes. I never saw anybody's jaw drop so fast. I mean, we have been absolutely pressing the point that the landlords have all these expenses that aren't going away when the rent quits coming in. But like I said, some of these people, particularly the tenant advocates, are so far out there. There's one, Kalila Jackson of EHOC. She's the particular one that I don't get along with. And she says things like, I hope the state of Missouri finally takes all these properties away from all these landlords. Well, okay, I think you're thinking about like Cuba or North Korea or something where the government owns everything. That's not what we have here. And I've made the point over and over again, I promise you, that the landlords are suffering, that I have landlords who are talking about divesting, that they're, one of the things that I think will be really bad to happen is if the small landlords go away and it's just large institutional landlords who take over. And, I will tell you, first of all, they add fees for everything. They have fees for looking out the window. I mean, we represent a lot of them, and some of them are very nice people, but there's fees that they have for everything they do. Your base rent gets increased by about 25% every month with all the additional fees they have. They, I think probably partly on the advice of counsel, they operate everything exactly by the book. So a tenant can't go in and explain their situation and maybe get a little extra time or whatever, on whatever their day is in the month, like the 15th or whatever. We'll get a bunch of eviction lawsuits, flooding into our office, because I think they feel that if they don't treat everybody exactly the same, they're going to end up with a discrimination complaint. And, they absolutely go by the book on credit screening and, that kind of thing too. They don't have the ability to give the leeway that the smaller landlords do, or the ability to work with people. And then I feel like these governments all the time are saying, oh, absentee landlords and people who don't live in the community and that kind of thing. That's exactly what they're going to get more of if they keep doing this oppression on the landlords. The bigger landlords, some of them may have the wherewithal to get through this, but the smaller landlords are going to be more pinched or more likely to say, yeah, I'm not doing this business anymore.
Yeah. One thing that maybe you can help us with in the future, in future calls, is I thought that somewhere embedded in the new Biden proposals was basically a no-fault discrimination plea that the tenants can make, that they don't need to have any proof that they were discriminated against. I know I read that somewhere. So can you help, as that becomes, it kind of rises to the surface, help us understand how we manage our businesses under that, environment?
Yeah. I have not been able to get to specifics of the proposal yet, but as soon as I get to them, maybe we'll talk about it next week. This obviously is very new. It came through last night, and I was horrified about the proposed eviction moratorium until September. I didn't see anything about discrimination. So we'll see. I think that the bad bankruptcy things that were possibly in the last relief bill got bounced. We haven't heard about them being enacted. So, and it's just like any negotiation. They're going in with a big ask, and maybe they're prepared to pull back on some things. So again, giving feedback to your representatives might be helpful in getting some moderation of that long eviction stay. If Biden is going to roll out the vaccine as quickly as he hopes to, why do we need to wait until September for people to pay their rent? That should be happening sooner than that. John, if you're trying to talk, you're muted.
Oh, I'm sorry. I had two different conversations going on.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Nothing important other than it's only important here.
Yeah.
Sorry, but I was.
No, I got you. I thought maybe you were trying to say something and I didn't realize, because I do that all the time.
Yeah, no, it's on purpose. Thanks. I'm trying not to disrupt.
Yeah.
Yours way more important than what I had to say.
Does anybody else have any questions they'd like to ask or anything?
I had one. What happens if the people move out of the apartment, but you're waiting on the execution? What happens in that environment where we could move somebody in and then they try and say, well, I was sick and I was staying with somebody else possibly. Any comments on that potential scenario?
Well, I think if you believe that the person has moved, you should call us or call your lawyer and walk through the abandonment procedure, so that if you have a good faith belief that they've moved, we can do a notice of abandonment, which will protect you somewhat if you take possession.
Okay.
Question for Kathy. Did you see the latest with TEH? No, do tell. Amber?
Yeah, no. So I was just going to say, I can't remember. I was trying to look it up online to find the news article, but there was something on the news where I guess they went into foreclosure and possibly bankruptcy, and they've taken all 12, I believe, of their properties here. Well, I should say, I don't think they're all here in St. Louis, but around the United States, taken them all, and they've offered them up for sale. So I believe 11 of the 12 have been sold already, and the last one I think is condemned.
Yeah, I have heard some things like that too. I know that there have been receiverships filed, and I know that some of them have been offered for sale. I mean, I think they've been run out of town. And I think the same thing has happened to them in Kansas City, where they have some properties. I mean, that was, an excellent example of a crappy big landlord. And those people were bad in many, many ways.
So I was not aware, they mentioned it in the news report, that they were an Israel-based business.
Yes, they were people from Israel. We met with them once. They bought a property that we had previously done work for, a great landlord who decided to retire. And we met with them, and we left the meeting feeling that we did not want to be their lawyer.
Mm.
Yeah. And we're welcoming. We take most people. We're not real picky. There are certain things that you can do that will cause me to fire you as a client, but they're not very common.
Mm-hmm.
We'll work with you if you need help paying us. We'll work with you if you think you can take the doors off. We'll try to persuade you not to, and that kind of thing. But yeah, they were really obnoxious. We felt that we would not get along with them as their lawyer.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, very interesting. I felt kind of bad about the one property, Southwest Crossing, in the city that they had. The people prior to them that they bought it from put so much work into it. It looks so nice. And it's a tough property because in that area, the quality of applicant they're getting wasn't great. And they were trying really hard to screen. And, they had some problems with the city and with nuisance. And we were working through all those and everything. And then TEH bought it and just ran it into the ground. Really a shame. Okay. Anybody else got anything that I can answer today?
Kathy, this is Dan Bryan. Do you have
Hi.
a list of resources that you or anyone else on here that to send to tenants? Obviously, I don't want to send them legal counsel resources, but resources that will help them pay rent, or help them when they're proactively trying to make their rent payments, and what help out.
Thing number one, very easy. they should call 211. 211 is the United Way helpline, and the United Way coordinates this aid with most of the local agencies. If you tell them to call 211, that's a very good starting place. Both the city and the county have a link on their websites to COVID relief. I think that might circle them back around to 211 in some instances, but it will also list other things that they can do, other places that they can call to try to get help. There may be some resources like churches and that kind of thing that you don't get through 211, but I don't have a list of those, but I hear about that sometimes. But I know that a lot of tenants that I've talked to that have come to virtual court in the last few months either already knew about 211 or when I told them about 211, were able to get placed with an agency through that and get some help. So that's the thing that I would do. 211 or look on the city and the county websites.
Yes, I will say, Kathy, you sent us earlier the link to the St. Louis County website where that was listed, and we've got that on our website also.
Oh, good.
Under
Okay.
the news, under the news button. Dan, if you go to the our website, stlria.com, and along the top line, there's a news. Click on that, and it'll bring up a whole list of articles. And you screen down there for getting help for your tenants. There's a link to the St. Louis County resources with phone numbers, and it has some churches on it too.
Yeah, good. Yeah, I kind of vaguely remember sending you that link. And I think, technically the last program was up at the end of December, but there was a new program that was approved with that new PP money, and that has rental assistance in it too. I haven't looked at the city or the county websites this week to see if they've got new information, but I would just, tell the tenants to get with that, get talking to an agency and get help. The really frustrating tenants, as you know, are the ones who just sort of burrow in and won't talk to anybody, won't ask for help. Maybe they're eligible. We don't know. They're just hibernating. So, anyone else? Guys, great to see you as always.
Thanks, Kathy.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, good to see you.
We'll be back next week, and I'll be hopefully by then, by 11 o'clock on next Friday, I'll be a grandmother for a third time. So
Yes, please send pictures if you can.
I will. Yeah, let me see if I can figure out how to do that.
Okay, that'd be great.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Kathy. We appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
All righty.
All right.
Okay, thanks for being here. I think we got Stevens Plowman's